Thank you. I never thought I'd be here. I just have to thank my wife, my friends. Joe, thank you. I thank all the people who wrote those amazing books that helped me get here. But most of all, I have to thank the psychologist who told me all those years ago that if I didn't pretend to be somebody else for the rest of my life, I might not get as far as I have today. Thank you, all of you. Last year, I retired from an acting career that lasted well over 40 years. I was not on the stage, the silver screen or the goggle box. All my waking hours, I acted my socks off in my signature role. Had I been playing it professionally, I may have been showered in Oscars, Tonys, BAFTAs, for I convinced almost everyone I ever met that I was someone else. Was I a con artist then? Playing a cunning game to reel in any unsuspecting dupes with my sophisticated facade, so I could fleece them of their riches, filling up my Swiss bank account with their fortunes, ever on the lookout for my next mark? My very UK-bound bank balance would argue otherwise. The role I played was one played to equal perfection by millions of people like me the world over. When I stepped out of the door to face the world, I played me, but not autistic. The act I describe is known amongst autistic people as a mask. Many of us wear it everywhere we go. Even before we find out that we are autistic, many of us have already become accomplished actors. It starts at a very young age. Humans are a fickle species, a timid and fearful animal that is afraid of the tiniest deviance from the normal and the mundane. We can accept the weird and the fantastic as fiction. We suspend our disbelief. But when something is just a little bit off, just slightly divergent from the rules, we are disturbed at a visceral level. There is a phenomenon that's been exploited as long as stories have been told, and it's become a staple of the horror movie industry. Our fear is based as much on the familiar as it is on the terrifying and outlandish. It's one of the reasons why small-budget horror movies are often regarded as classics and the most effective in evoking the fear response that draws people to watch them. A little bit of yellowish makeup and a pair of contact lenses can make an actor almost as terrifying as millions of dollars of CGI and practical effects spent on bizarre monsters and buckets of fake blood. We call that phenomenon the uncanny valley. It's long been the blessing of storytellers and the curse of the AI, video games and robotics industry. The first known use of the phrase in English was in a 1978 book about robotics by Yasha Reichhardt, but its origin lies with Japanese professor Masahiro Mori, who described the concept in 1970, drawing on psychological principles dating back as far as 1906. The uncanny valley is the space we occupy when we are confronted with something which mimics human appearance but which doesn't quite convince us of its humanity. It preys on primal fears in a way that's still subject to much speculation as to its cause. Whatever the reasons for it, the phenomenon definitely exists, and we see examples of it all around us. The theory goes that there is a point at which a facsimile of a person, like a doll or a puppet, becomes a little too close to reality and starts to unsettle people. That feeling of the uncanny gets ever stronger the closer the representation comes to our expectations without meeting them, yet the fear evaporates when it becomes close enough for us to believe that what we're looking at or listening to could possibly be human. A robotic character like C-3PO from Star Wars is sufficiently different that we're not unsettled by him. He has human characteristics, speaks human language and demonstrates a range of human-like body language, but his stiff arms and legs, gold metallic surface and unmoving face are sufficiently removed from being human that we accept him as something different from us and therefore non-threatening. Star Wars also gives an example of the other side of the effect. By cladding Imperial stormtroopers in identical body armour and helmets, it stops us from caring when we see them slaughtered.
I've got a bad feeling about
They are faceless and characterless. They're like drones or objects. They have arms, legs and a caricature of a face, but they don't seem human. Everyone that meets their end on screen is a point scored for our heroes. Heroes that don't hide their faces. Now consider this against the intense fears some of us have over clowns, mimes, or even people we know wearing masks. In such cases, the fear is of people who are clearly human, but their makeup or their mask confuse our perception of their expressions, and therefore their intention. We've previously talked at length on this channel about how much influence theory of mind has in social situations. Masks and makeup interfere with our abilities to gauge the signals we look for in others, which in turn inhibits our ability to predict their intent. This is a significant part of why disguises seem uncanny to us, why it can make us nervous and untrusting. Where the boundaries lie in terms of our personal uncanny valleys are influenced by many factors. The cultures that we grew up in and our past experiences undoubtedly play a part, as does our self-esteem and confidence in others. It's been demonstrated many times that the political and social temperature of a society at any given time can play a significant role in the willingness of its citizens to trust others. At the height of the Cold War in the latter half of the 20th century, our fears were stoked by the paranoia of spies, perhaps the ultimate expression of uncanniness. The vipers in the nest, the cuckoos hiding in plain sight, just like us except not. At that time, anyone could be a spy or a sleeper agent waiting to be activated, at least in the movies and the propaganda films. So how does this fear apply to autistic people? Autistic people, when they behave naturally, often don't give out the same non-verbal signals as neurotypical people do. About half of us are alexithemic, meaning we have difficulty in or are slow to understand and express emotions, including our own. When we are asked, "How are you feeling?" it can be a challenging question to answer. Almost all of us also have particular sensitivities in the way we process sensory information. We may be hyposensitive to some things and miss details, or we could be hypersensitive and absorb details others would miss. You can find out more about this in a previous video essay of ours linked above. Either way, it is common for us to be flooded with extra information, which we learn over a lifetime to filter and prioritise. When faced with such an overload of sensory data, it shouldn't be surprising that we have a tendency to go quiet and think very hard about our responses sometimes, particularly when the conversation is emotionally charged. In order to reduce the flow of information, we may choose to cut people short, avoid eye contact, or focus on one small aspect of what has been said to us at a time. Such behaviours are often misunderstood as being rude or indicating a lack of interest. People might become agitated at our interruptions or become tired of confirming what seem to them as trivial details. Many of us stim frequently, fiddling with things, fidgeting, humming, repeating words or phrases, or rocking back and forth. These are behaviours not often practiced by NT people and are frequently described as weird by those who don't understand. We might have a different set of rules about what we will or won't say. We often use verbal language that others might only expect to read in a book. We become confused by contradictions and patterns we spot, leading to frowning or more stimming. And whilst we're capable of lying, deception does not often come easy to us. We have enough trouble isolating the truth and what other people say to us, so we often choose to be totally honest ourselves. Brutally, bluntly honest. Whether we care to admit it to ourselves or not, all these verbal and visual signals trigger the uncanny valley response in many, if not most, neurotypical people. It arouses unease and fear that can cause some to be hostile from the get-go and others to be wary. Consequently, most autistic people wear a mask whenever we're in public. It's a cautionary measure brought on by countless bad or even dangerous past experiences. It starts in infancy, as soon as we become aware of other people. From the grandparent that keeps their distance, to the disapproving looks and whispered comments about bad parenting in the supermarket. The bullying from teachers and pupils, to the never-ending failed job interviews. The mask acts like a protective layer which inoculates us against the intolerance of the outside world. We observe, we mimic, we read self-help books about body language and effective communication. We build a facade of neurotypicality to shield us from the consequences of being different. Some are better than others. Many's the tale of someone disclosing their autism to be greeted with comments like, "Really? I never would have guessed." A common response from NT people when we talk about the mask is to reply, "Oh, everybody does it. We all act differently in different places." It's an understandable reaction, but one that vastly underestimates the effort involved in maintaining a mask. You might be okay to mind your language around your grandmother or the vicar, but you don't spend every single day in their company. You may be good to put on your professional face when around the boss or a client, but the meeting eventually ends and you get to be yourself. It cannot be sustained permanently, no matter who you are. Yet that is what a masking autistic must do. We must play a convincing role which is entirely out of character, all day, every day. We must pretend to understand things we don't, to ignore signals of danger, resist our stims, tolerate overstimulating noise and lights, and act like we're enjoying ourselves when every fibre of our being is screaming for quiet and solitude. An effective mask is a complete rewrite of all our surface details. We don't just have to pass as normal, we must completely convince everyone all the time. Because the moment we slip, we are cast deep into the uncanny valley and find ourselves exposed. The exhaustion of masking cannot be overstated. A day in the workplace is not just tiring, it can be devastating. Yet we still have to get up the following morning and do it all over again. Many of us cannot keep it up forever. Anxiety, PTSD and depression are far more common amongst the autistic population than in neurotypicals. Breakdowns happen with alarming frequency. For many, the alternative to masking is to withdraw. The strain is overwhelming, so we slink into a corner and live out our lives on welfare benefits, afraid to face the choice of being labelled a freak or destroying ourselves by masking. It's hardly a wonder that in the US and the UK, less than 20% of autistic adults are in full-time employment. Some have managed to get by or succeed in self-employment. But every self-employed person needs customers, and so the mask must go on from time to time in order to get enough work. Professions that can be performed without human interaction are very rare. Some of us, though, have decided to drop the mask and just be ourselves, no longer pandering to the expectations of others. It's not an easy feat. Quite apart from resisting the urge to carry on as we may have done for decades, the amount of explaining we have to do, the odd looks we receive, and the whispers we overhear are no less upsetting. That said, it's not as exhausting or draining to the soul as pretending to be someone else. Masking is the one troublesome aspect of autistic life that lies entirely within the power of the rest of the world to eliminate. The only reason we feel the need to mask is to go unnoticed. If it weren't for the judgment, the prejudice, or the lost opportunities that arise from the human urge to shy away from those who are slightly different, there would be no need for it. Understanding, tolerance, and above all, acceptance could free us from the burden. On the other hand, whilst we wear masks or hide from view, the neurotypical world doesn't get exposed to our unique differences or qualities. They only see us as autistic when we are at our most vulnerable and distressed, when we melt down or shut down. We strive for acceptance, and perhaps part of that struggle requires more of us to stop masking and let the world see us for who and what we are. Perhaps then people may stand a better chance of getting to know and understand us and who we are. Perhaps then we'll be able to claw our way out of the uncanny valley for good. With a U mask, hide from view, or are completely out in the open, remember, you're not just autistic, because every day can be an Autistamatic day. Please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to be kept up to date with new content.